So I'd first like to start by thanking the county dispatch workers that were working that night. That was a busy night to begin with. We're a small county with limited staff, and so for those folks to manage two separate scenes where when it first came in, they were not aware that they were related. And so, excuse me, so for them to be able to navigate that and provide assistance as quickly as they did, and then provide response to the house, that's tremendous work. And on that same note, to our volunteer first responders. In small counties like Washington County, having people that can respond that quickly, they're volunteers, and so they leave their home and they come and provide comfort, provide assistance, and so really without them, our county would struggle. And so on that night, it was especially hard for them as well, because these are their neighbors and their friends and their kids' friends. So as you saw today was just a preliminary process in this case where it was a bail application made by defense based on the charges and the facts as portrayed during the hearing. We had requested remand, which is permitted under our bail statute, and as you saw, the court did decide that the least restrictive means to ensure the defendant's appearance in court was a remand. So at this time, the defendant will be remanded to court pending further action in grand jury proceedings, et cetera. I've provided you with a copy of the complaint, and as you see from that, the defendant is accused of having fired a shot at a vehicle that was on his property. That shot ultimately killed Kaylin Gillis. It's important to keep in mind today the defendant is presumed innocent, but know that my office will do everything in our power to ensure that justice is served for Kaylin Gillis and those that were with her today or that day. So thank you.
Can you talk about additional charges being possible? That was mentioned by Mr. Morris in court.
Sure. As any investigation unfolds, there's possibilities for additional charges. What those will be determined based on the evidence as it's gathered. I think along that same line, that evening and morning, 40-some members of law enforcement responded to assist in the investigation. So the amount of evidence that's been gathered, the material that has to be reviewed and processed is significant, and based on that, if appropriate, additional charges will be filed.
And that could include attempted murder?
I'm not going to speak beyond what was said during the bail application, but yes, certainly that was mentioned in court and is a possibility, but beyond that, that's all I'll be able to say.
I know you said you don't want to talk about the case, but the defense attorney is saying that this isn't the full story, that he had a reason to fear because they were flashing their lights and revving their engines and driving at a high rate of speed. Do you see any rationale here for what he did? I mean, was there any threat, any perceived threat you think is valid?
That will be the purpose of trial when that will be brought out, but I'm not going to comment or speculate on that at this time.
Sir, both of the Washington County Sheriff and Mr. Monahan's attorney have been outspoken with the media leading up to today. Do you believe that the information that has been shared or the amount of information is a concern for impact to a potential trial?
I don't think so. One thing we've found with jurors has been that when they're instructed as to what is their charge and their responsibility, they take that very seriously. And during the voir dire process, any of those issues will be worked out by Judge Michelini, I'm sure.
Can you speak from your heart, sir? I mean, this case obviously has gotten international attention. It's happening in succession with some other insane cases. Just speak from your heart. How do you feel about this?
As a father, and an uncle, and having friends that were impacted by this, you understand why it touches a chord across the country, because that's the greatest challenge parents face is knowing that their children are going to move on, and we've all had that experience. So I think it's understandable that it's brought this level of attention. But for me as a prosecutor, we have a lot of work to do to ensure justice for Kaylin, and that's where we'll go, and we'll follow the facts where they lead us. And so that's what we get to do, and that's our responsibility at this point.
Mr. Morris described him as hot-tempered in court. Can you just address that? Again, that was mentioned in court.
I'll leave what was mentioned during the bail hearing there.
Can you talk about the weapon involved? There's some confusion as to whether it was a shotgun with a deer slug in it or some other weapon.
Again, that'll be something that is, will ultimately come out during the course of the investigation and future hearings. So beyond that, I'm not going to comment any further on that.
It was described in open court as a shotgun, though.
And that will be, what was said in court will be what was said. I'm not going to further comment here during a press announcement as to whether, what was determined, exists. It's, what was used in court will be there just as it was for the defense.
The kids that night were not able to get a cell phone signal. They had to try to get the signal. Has that been an issue in other public safety incidents in the county in the past?
Yes, I mean, in rural America, and Washington County is no different. There are, and I should say it's not the exclusive province of rural America, right? I know in many areas within metropolitan New York, there are cell zone areas that lack for adequate coverage, and that's a major problem. And I think the old person of me says we should have landlines, but the reality is people don't have landlines anymore, right? And that doesn't help you when you're out. And people rely on phones for everything, for directions, for tracking, all of those good things. And that is a major issue. I mean, it's a problem up and down the Northway between here and Plattsburgh. It's a problem throughout many of our rural areas. And as I said, I know there's pockets in the city that have the same challenge. So that ought to be addressed. I don't know how, that's not my responsibility, but I do think that continues to pose a very, very real public safety issue and challenge for many parts of our country, and certainly in Washington County.
He'll still be held in Warren County, or is he going to be held in Washington County?
Those are issues the sheriff will work out. That's his province. I know he was brought over from Warren County, but again, that's something the sheriff will address.
I think there was some concern that there was maybe like a conflict of interest because the father of the victim, is this right, works for, does he work for the sheriff?
I'm unaware of any conflict of interest. But thank you all for being here, and I certainly appreciate the consideration.